Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there and certainly had yourselves a fantastic Monday. And I hope you all had a great start to your work week. Thank you for joining me this evening. I think you'll be happy that you did. We're going to get you guys a very informative video about this storm system that will affect a lot of people's weather this weekend. This is going to be a high impact storm system. And really, there's not really a question on whether a storm system is going to happen anymore. It's really just a question on what's going to happen with this storm system as far as impact. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to talk about what we do know, but just know that we don't really have the answer on what exactly is going to happen. I mean, this is still about five-ish days out right now. This is coming for this weekend. It's still Monday. But if you guys got any questions, please don't hesitate to still ask them. I'll try to answer them the best way that I can. But we're going to try to figure out general areas and what they could potentially see. For example, we know that there's a good chance if you live further south, there's probably going to be a higher severe weather threat. The further north you get, the lesser that severe weather threat will probably be, and the higher chance you'll just see rain, maybe even the chance for a wintry side. And I think there is the potential for a winter storm side and a severe weather side to this. Okay, it's just trying to figure out who sees it. All right, who sees what? So timestamps will be set up in this video. Skip ahead to portions of the video that you want to hear. Don't blame you one bit. Won't take any offense to it because my videos are very long, I do know. But I like to talk about what drives these systems. That's very important to me. And what's most important is trying to explain this to a way with the audience you guys can understand. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it, and I promise you others will be praying over it also. So let's get rolling. Let's talk about what's going on right now. That's important. It leads into the rest of the video, and that's why I'm going to start the video out like this. We got a lot of rain in the Pacific Northwest. You see it out here, the greens, the yellows, the orange. It's a lot of heavy rain. It's a warmer system. It's a warmer system because you notice how the rain's moving in due north. Then it kind of comes up here, kind of goes more so west to east, and then it kind of rides back down the Rockies, right? And dips down here into the high plains in the middle of the country. Then it gets back to that more so sort of northwest to southeast flow right over the middle of the country. And then if you look over here, we just got a lot of energy flying through this region, but it's not reflecting to the surface is a lot of moisture, and it doesn't always do so. And we're going to talk energy. We're going to use the word energy a lot in this video, but in general, you have a ridge building over the western U.S., and this will continue to move across into the middle of the country. So that's the reason I'm explaining you that is because that's going to drive what's really driving our pattern. So this will kind of lead into what our pattern will look like here in the coming days, setting up for our storm system. So we're going to show you this, and this is going to confuse some people, and that's I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can here. If you're a new viewer, if you're not, then maybe you understand. If not, ask questions, and I would love to answer them. That's what I'm here for. So we're going to start this off for tomorrow morning. You ask, what is the blue and what does the red and orange mean? The red and orange, the warmer colors on the screen, basically indicates higher pressure. Okay, basically a ridge of high pressure. And that normally brings warmer than average temperatures, and it typically brings quieter weather. And in this case, the jet is bulging all the way up here into Canada, and then it meets this blue. This indicates low pressure. Low pressure, think of that as more active weather, typically cooler than average temperatures, and then stormy weather associated with lower pressure. So you have this trough dig, and you got a lot of energy over the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, the eastern U.S. in general. Okay, we're going to have a pretty aggressive clipper that actually flies across the eastern U.S. and actually brings some northwest snow for areas of the Appalachian Mountains. And we'll talk about that in tomorrow morning's video. But you keep this going, and if you're confused at all about the time frames we're at, please look up here. Don't focus too much on the Zulu time, 21Z. Don't look too much on that. Just look at the day of the week, Tuesday, 5 DEC, December. Okay, watch as this big blob of red right here begins to shift to the middle of the country. This is our ridge, bringing above average temperatures. Okay, kind of flattens out. It's not as aggressively bulging north into Canada like it was the day prior. So we're getting into Wednesday, our last bit of clipper energy associated with these cooler looking colors on the screen moves on out, and then we get a period, basically a few day period, 2 to 3 day period of quieter weather across the middle of the country. And this will be associated with warmer than average temperatures. Here's your ridge over the country. So there's two things to look at right here. We're getting into Thursday morning. Look at the lower pressure beginning to show back up over the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. This is our storm system entering the screen. And by the way, we're looking at the European model. Sometimes I forget to mention what we're looking at here. So we continue to move this forward. We get into Friday morning, okay? Lower pressure showing up over the northern portion of the country, the northern Rockies. Ridge is moving off to the east, bulging into eastern Canada. As you can tell, this is a jet digging down, and then the jet shoots all the way up here in Canada. This is going to bring above average temperatures even into southeastern and eastern Canada. Okay, here comes our system. So what's going to happen is you got two main pieces of energy, one right into here, one right into here. These kind of split off. The main energy right here in the blue, remember, blue's associated with lower pressure, stormier conditions, digs down in here. And I think it's because you get a big time ridge that pops off over the western U.S. This allows us to slide down the Rockies, and the European is by far the most aggressive model for a more dynamic storm system. So this digs down into Texas, Oklahoma. At this point, you have what you call a neutrally tilted trough. So that means that this thing is digging just like this, okay? And it's on its way to becoming negatively tilted. If you don't know anything about the tilts and things like that, just know that when you get a negatively tilted, what we call trough, that means you have a strengthening storm system and more than likely a very dynamic storm system on the table. So this thing really just turns into a full-fledged bowling ball 500 millibar trough right here. And as it digs down here into Friday and a Saturday, this is yanking a lot of warm, moist air from the south. Basically what we call a southwestern flow or a southerly flow, you can might as well call it, out the Gulf of Mexico and out of Mexico just in general. And this is going to provide a sector, or basically a sector of ingredients for severe weather somewhere across the deep south. Okay, this digs down here and really amplifies, guys. I mean, Arkansas is just always a state that just has been, well, I wouldn't say always. It's been a state that's really got hammered over the last couple years, I feel like. A lot of crazy dynamic weather has happened in the state of Arkansas, for sure. I'm sure you folks that are tuning in from Arkansas can voice that for sure. But this then takes on that negative tilt, okay? Look how it's digging, kind of tilting like this. That is something that's a bit worrisome. High impact storm system, and then basically this continues to bring a lot of ingredients into Sunday for severe weather across Georgia, the Carolinas. Basically, the European says, hey, there is a severe weather potential for sure across all the states in the south and then to the southeast. And then this basically ejects across the Appalachian Mountains, giving a lot of crazy weather, a lot of winds for the entire eastern U.S. And then another impulse of energy follows behind it, but we won't focus too much on that, okay? So another way to look at this, and then you got, and I will say you got the GFS too, but I don't want to stick too long on this. One difference with the GFS is it does not dig down as much as the European. You see how the energy comes down here, and it doesn't dig this energy way down here in Texas, and it more so becomes negatively tilted over Missouri, much further north, which means severe weather has the potential to be a little bit further north, and the wintry side of this would be a little bit further north. Okay, and this really ejects right here across the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, into the Great Lakes region. So there's a difference there. Okay, another way to look at this is energy in the atmosphere. You see these vibrant kind of slashes of colors into here, the yellows, the oranges, the reds. That is energy in the atmosphere. And one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is the Europeans' illustration of the energy. And here it is. Look at this digging down right into here. As we're getting into Saturday, then we are getting into Saturday night. There is your energy showing up here, just digging down. And there, right here, it has that neutral tilt. You see how it's digging straight down, but watch how it bows out, and then it takes on that tilt right here. So when you have a negatively tilted trough, it brings all kinds of dynamic weather. It brings a lot of cold air with it on kind of the northern northwest side, western side of the low. So low would be right here, could bring some snow, back in snow. And then on the southern southeastern side, right over here, could bring just a nasty round of storms. But one thing, when you have and I'm going to talk about this when we break down the severe weather, when you have such an aggressive, strong system like this, a lot of times you have what we call an uncapped environment. And typically, a lot of times, you're not going to get a ton of discrete supercells with this. This could be just a nasty, ugly squall line with embedded tornadoes in it. So it's something to watch for. This slashes through the northeast, bringing a ton of winds with it, just a ton of energy, okay? One thing we'll look at very quick is the ensemble. Okay, the ensembles are all over this. This is the European ensemble. Shows the huge signal for a storm right in here. Big blue blob, think of that as a lot of energy. A storm system right over the middle of the country this weekend. So you have ensemble guidance with this. Same thing with the GFS ensemble. You have agreement here from the ensemble. Okay, even stronger signal compared to its operational run on the GFS ensemble. So you have the agreement from one of the more one of the more sought after models to look at in the kind of the mid to long range, which is the ensembles to its operational runs. So I want to show you what a lot of people probably want to see, and that is, hey, Mitch, is it going to rain or is it going to snow at my house? Are we going to see storms, or what are we going to see? So what does the European look like when you compare what I just showed you to the green and the blues on the map? Okay, what we call the surface outlook here. Okay, here we go. As we're getting into Saturday morning, here comes a lot of precipitation showing up. Now we're in the Saturday evening. There's that low pressure that pops right over Arkansas. Everybody south, southeast, even east of this low has the chance to see some severe weather. You see the blue line coming up behind this? That is cold air trying to chase down that moisture associated with the system. Watch how this L begins to move northeast, and watch how this number begins to drop. The lower the millibar, the stronger the storm system. So we keep this going, and look at this. Right here, you stop it here, you got this low pressure right around the western Tennessee region, right around Memphis, Sunday morning, okay? You got heavy snow falling in northwest Arkansas, snow falling in Missouri, and then south of this low into Sunday morning, you probably have some sort of nasty line of storms making its way through the deep south. You keep this going, guys, and we get all the way into Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Look at this cold air aloft moving into Tennessee. This would be heavy, wet snow over Indiana, the Boot Hill, Missouri, all the way up into Michigan. This would be a wind-driven rain across the Ohio River Valley. Cold air trying to chase down this moisture in the Cumberland Plateau, trying to switch it to snow in the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee. And right here, Sunday night into Monday, and please don't think this is a forecast. I'm just comparing model guides. We're not in that forecast range yet where we know exactly what's going to happen. But it shows a stripe of heavy snow right over areas of Indiana, Illinois, Michigan. Very narrow, relatively speaking, over this region. Excuse me, losing my voice. And then this low pressure blasts through southern Ontario, areas of the Northeast. And yeah, we could have severe weather down into the Carolinas sometime Sunday. And then this is just a wind-driven rain for the Northeast. This would not be, I don't think, unless we can get this system to dig and dig further east, you're going to need a lot of work to make this a wintry system for the Northeast. Maybe some back-end snow. But yeah, that's the European, okay? What about the latest GFS that just ran? Here it goes. We're getting into Saturday morning. One thing you'll notice right at the dot is this low pressure is beginning to crank up much further north, about a state and a half north, if you will, into Missouri. You got a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure Saturday morning, all the way up into Missouri, snow falling in Iowa, Kansas, even areas in Nebraska, all the way up to Omaha. And then you keep this going, this could bring some back-end heavy snow for areas more so of the Midwest, and then a severe weather threat potentially further north of the Mississippi Valley, maybe into the Ohio River Valley. Yeah, and then you keep this going, you're getting into Saturday night. This is just a quicker evolution off the GFS. A lot of heavy snow, back in rain to heavy snow for Chicago. And then we have a 986 millibar low pressure right over Lake Huron. A potential for some severe weather, somewhere in the Ohio Valley. Heavy wind-driven rain, a lot of winds associated with a deepening low pressure, guys. And to keep this going, and this does switch moisture into snow across the Ohio Valley, even eventually into western PA, and then this heads on off. So basically the GFS ejects this low pressure sooner. It's not quite as strong early on, and the European, I would say, is the worst case scenario with this storm system. So let's talk about the severe potential with this. The Storm Prediction Center is confident enough to where they say, hey, Friday, predictability too low. That means there's probably going to be some sort of risk of severe weather, but it's too low to put a 15% outlook on this. But check out day 6. Already a 15% risk of severe weather up for this coming Saturday. Okay, that means there's a level 2 out of 5 risk for Saturday, a slight risk at day 6. All right, they're already confident that something's going to happen. I could see this moving one way or the other. Okay, if something like the European happens, guys, we're definitely going to have a severe weather outbreak. So they're already confident, and then they go to day 7, predictability too low. But what I can tell you is you're probably going to have at minimum a 2-day severe weather event. Okay, that's what I think. So let's talk about the ingredients, and let's talk about the European. If something like the European was to happen, let's talk about the kinematic side, which means the wind energy associated with the severe weather threat. Okay, what you're looking at here is winds in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. I'm talking about 18 to 19,000 feet up. Okay, and we call this the mid-level jet. This digs down with this associated upper trough. You have a lot of winds associated with this, and then you're getting into Saturday. You have a 80, 90, 95 knot mid-level jet flying over, digging into Texas, really getting into Arkansas, areas of Louisiana. This really amplifies even further as we're waking up Sunday morning. And I mean, you look right down here in Mississippi, guys, all the way down here. I mean, this really digs all the way down here to Baton Rouge, New Orleans. We got over 100 knot, guys, mid-level jet. This is going to provide, this is basically winds at around 100 knots, okay, 110, 115 miles per hour, about 15 to 20,000 feet up in the air. You're definitely going to have some of these winds mixing to the surface. You're going to have a strong low-level jet. It's a little bit too soon to talk about low-level jets, things like that. But here it is, moving right over Arkansas. And this is going to provide a lot of wind energy, probably to some kind of nasty line of storms. Okay, and here it is. I mean, look at it working its way through Alabama, Georgia. I can tell you, if the European is correct, you would actually have a worse severe weather threat, I think, further east into Sunday. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up for Sunday. If we wake up tomorrow morning and they have a 15% risk at day 6 again, but for Sunday, and then they maintain the 15% risk for Saturday for day 5, because we're obviously moving closer in time. But this is going to provide a ton of winds, not only in the upper levels of the atmosphere, but in the low levels too, and then eventually the surface. So you're going to have a ton of a kinematic energy somewhere, even if it's just the GFS that plays out. One thing, what happens when you have these big time upper troughs that dig down here, you have winds at the base of these troughs that pulls in a lot of warm, moist air to the south. So you started off and getting into Friday afternoon, dew points already climbing into the 60s, into the Gulf coastline of Texas, Louisiana, okay? And then we continue to get into Saturday afternoon, widespread dew points, okay? This is what we call a thermodynamic. When you get dew points in the 60s, you can check that off as an ingredient for severe weather in some form or fashion. Okay, dew points, just a massive, broad, warm moist sector from eastern Texas all the way into portions of the panhandle of Florida and Georgia. So you definitely have a lot of moist air bubbling up for the deep south. And then, I mean, you even get into Sunday, guys, and this would scream severe weather for the Carolinas for Sunday, and I mean, even for Georgia. Okay, look at all this warm, moist air all the way up into Richmond, Virginia, and then the atmosphere clears out. Could even have some lingering severe weather for the Northeast. We'll have to watch. Okay, You add in the storm fuel, which is Cape values. I mean, look, Friday. I mean, you already got Cape values over 1,000 joules per kilogram. But then we get into Saturday, and you don't need a lot of fuel when you already have that. When you already have the higher moist levels, and then you have the higher kinematic levels, all that wind energy, you really don't need a whole lot of Cape. But to me, this screams a low Cape, high shear event, meaning you're going to have a ton, ample amount of wind energy, but lower available energy in the atmosphere to really work for these storms. Okay, but it's not going to take much Cape. Okay, if we get Cape up to 1,000 joules per kilogram with all that wind energy in place, oof, gonna spell trouble. One thing I'll mention too, with such a strong storm system and a strengthening low pressure moving over land, this is the blend of all models. This is the signal for a lot of winds, okay, getting into Friday, and then we look into Saturday. There's some of those strong winds indicated, like over Tennessee, Kentucky. You have, some wind gusts showing up of 30 to 35, 40 miles per hour. I know you're thinking that's not a lot, but it does show a period of gusty winds. But we're going to fine tune this, certainly as, if you look at the European and what this looks like, it certainly looks totally different. Like, here we go, moving through in time, and there's the system showing those very strong winds coming up out the deep south. You got gusty winds as we're getting into our Sunday evening, 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, 45 mile per hour winds with this storm system. So that's just looking at a model run. So what about the snowy side of this? If something like the European was to unfold, okay, here's a closer look at that snowy side. Here it is. Moisture moves in, rain switches to snow, okay, for northwest Arkansas. And I know this doesn't look like a massive winter storm, but this would be some heavy, wet snow behind this low pressure with cold air trying to catch up. Okay, and this is, Sunday evening, you got heavy snow falling in central Illinois, sections of southeast Missouri, and then it really starts coming down. And even Indianapolis, it switches to snow. You got snow falling as far south as western Kentucky. This is not a forecast. It's just what one run of the European is showing. And then it shows a pretty substantial snow event for Michigan, then this heads on out. Now, what about the GFS? What does the GFS show with the snowy side of this? We back this up a little bit. GFS does show a pretty wintry side to this, but it's much further north. Shows a swath of accumulating snow from areas of Kansas, maybe even Kansas City, northern Missouri, Iowa, snow all the way into Wisconsin, northern Michigan, just a warmer system altogether. Eventually switches it to snow in St. Louis sometime this weekend, and then it even switches it from rain to snow in Chicago as we're getting into Saturday evening and then Sunday morning. Okay, so we need to figure out the details of that too. But I can tell you the European ensemble from this, there's the signal for snow right over the southern plains. It does show a pretty solid signal for snow in like Missouri, Illinois, areas of Iowa, but it's not a very high-end signal, like an inch and a quarter. Not much. We'll have to fine-tune the snowy side of this as we work through. But I can tell you a lot of rain could potentially fall with this. This is getting into Saturday, getting into Sunday, and then getting all the way through around this time next week. And it does show the signal for a good bit of rain to fall right over portions of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-South, and Deep South, where a couple inches of rain will add up. So a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen. When is this pattern going to flip? Or when are we going to be done with these warmer than average temperatures? We're not quite sure. There is a solid signal late month, though, right around the holidays, that we could have a switch. But right now, from the 12th to the 18th of this month, 8 to 14-day temperature outlook, mid-month time frame, they're thinking above average temperatures are going to dominate most of the country. This is subject to change. Stay tuned. But I can tell you December's looking about what we thought it was going to look like. Most of the month was going to be dominated by above average temperatures. And that's pretty much shaping out the way that a lot of people thought it was with a strong El Nino. But typically when we get to the end of the month, there's some signals pointing that we're going to have some changes. Okay, and we'll talk about that when it's needed to. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have a great night.